This is a trigger warning. This episode will include talks of suicidal ideation and suicide attempts, hospitalization, medication, trauma, church hurt, and things of that nature. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Kintsugi Talks Podcast, where we talk about God, mental health, and everything in between. It has been a few months since I recorded an episode. The last episode that I recorded before this one was in February. And to those that have been patiently waiting for me to put up a new episode, I thank you. For those that have sent me multiple messages, checking in on me, making sure I was okay, and taking the necessary time that I needed, I greatly appreciate it very, very much. I wanted to give a bit of a definition and kind of a overview of why I even started this podcast in the first place, for those that need a refresher and for those that are new listeners, so that they can get a gist of what the podcast is about. So, the name of the podcast is Kintsugi Talks. Kintsugi, the definition of it, Kintsugi is actually a Japanese art form. It's a very traditional art form. I think it goes back to centuries even. So the art form is essentially they take pottery that has been broken into pieces. It could be a plate, it could be a vase, it could be a cup. Pottery like that has been broken into pieces. And what they would do is they would take melted down metal to glue those pieces back together. Now, traditionally, they would use gold, melted down gold, to mend these pieces back together, but sometimes they use silver, sometimes they use bronze, but traditionally, it is with gold. If you look up kintsugi on any web search engine that you use, you will usually see a piece of pottery that has been put together with melted down gold. Now, the philosophy behind that is that before whatever it was that was broken, before it was broken, it was beautiful. But it is even more beautiful now that the brokenness is visible, and you can see the beauty of what is holding it together. I was greatly inspired by that, to where I actually have a saying tattooed on my arm. I don't know if anyone that is a famous historical figure has ever said it before, but on my right forearm, I have tattooed "Brokenness is still beautiful." And that is the premise, one of the premises that I have for starting this podcast. I want people who come to listen to this podcast to know that whatever that quote unquote brokenness is that you have, it could be you having a mental illness diagnosis, it could be you having a physical illness, a chronic illness, it could be you growing up in a dysfunctional household, it could be you going through a divorce, it could be you going through church hurt, it could be anything that you consider a hindrance to your life, anything that you consider to just be downright bad, to know that beauty can still come out of those things, and that God can use those things and make just an even more beautiful thing out of it. Like, something could have been already good before, something could have already been beautiful before, but God can make something even more beautiful. And it may be crazy to believe this, but God works most with broken people who have been broken, people who have been hurt, quote unquote damage. God works through those people because he cares about those people. So that is the meaning and purpose behind Kintsugi Talks podcast. right, so you see that the title of this episode is 1 Year Anniversary. July 5th, the day that this episode is coming out, is the 1 year, July 5th, 2023 of this year. It is the 1 year anniversary since my last suicide attempt. My last suicide attempt was last year, this day, 2022. And like how I specified, like in the very, very beginning of this episode, I did give a trigger warning. So if you did not heed to that trigger warning, I will say it again. There will be talks of suicide ideation and attempts, hospitalization, medication, trauma, things of that nature, intrusive thoughts, mood swings, manic episodes. Things of that nature will be talked about in this episode, so listener discretion is advised. So I want to go into the series of events, kind of just like the timeline, like my mental timeline of what led to that happening. So in July of 2022, I was unemployed. I had a job earlier that year working in an after-school program, and I actually left the job of medical leave because my mental health was in shambles. I mean, it's been in shambles for a long time, but it's just at that time it was just in really, really bad. There was many different factors to why my mental health was in shambles. The relationship I was in, family issues I was dealing with, and on top of that, I was dealing with a lot of trauma, and I kept getting triggered and reminded of that trauma, so that added onto it as well as other things. And I took medical leave from the job that I was working in. It was during probably the last month of the program, leading up to when they would have started their summer camp, which was fine. And around this time, I did have a psychiatrist. I didn't have a therapist because the therapist I had earlier in that year had to stop taking me and other people she was working with as clients because she was working under this internship kind of program that was connected to the college that she went to. And I was getting therapy from her for free. I didn't have to pay for anything. And at the time, I was dealing with this kind of back and forth with the psychiatrist that I had of the fact that the medication that I was on from her for about a year, that it wasn't working. It wasn't doing anything for me. And even before then, from the year 2016 up until that year, I was prescribed 10 different medications, all at different time points, of course. I wasn't on 10 medications at one time. I just want to make that clear. And either the medications didn't work for me, or they made specific symptoms I was dealing with worse, or it added on even worse symptoms to what I was already dealing with. So the medication that I did have currently from the psychiatrist that I had at the time, I told her that I wanted to stop it. So we went through the process of weaning myself out of the medication little by little to the point where I stopped taking it. And I was just I was already not well. I was already in a very dark place, already dealing with intrusive thoughts, already dealing with very strong manic episodes, very high highs, very low lows. My mood swings just felt like a constant smack to the face, every day. It's just I couldn't breathe. Still can't breathe now, but I'll talk about that a bit later in the episode. And by the time July came around, because I had took medical leave from my job in April, like the end of April going into May. So May, June, July, that's 3 months where I was not working, and 3 months where I literally was just in my house. Like I may have gone to church a few times, like every now and then, but I did not want to go out of my house. A lot of days where I stayed in my bed, did not eat. I either did not eat anything for like a good 1 or 2 days, or there would be that one day where I would just eat nonstop, like all day. Like there wouldn't be no pause for like breakfast, lunch, dinner. Like no, like I was eating like every hour, which is called binge eating. And had found myself in the space of just being completely numb and not caring about anything. So July 5th, I just remember I had went to the bathroom, I think to actually like want to brush my teeth, because it had probably been a week or so of me not brushing my teeth, because didn't care about anything. And I had opened my like medicine cabinet, which is what pretty much everyone has in their bathroom. And I went to get a new toothbrush because I wanted to change my toothbrush out. And then I saw that the old medicine that I had was still there. I just hadn't taken it. And I saw it, and something in me was just like, fuck it. And it was 3 different medicines that I had. And I grabbed a bottle of Tylenol. I just took a handful of each medicine, including the Tylenol, and I just swallowed it with only water. And I also had no food in my stomach when I did this, so you can only imagine of where this will lead as far as like side effects. So I took it, and I didn't even brush my teeth. I went back to my bed and just laid down. About an hour later, I woke up to having to throw up. Went to the bathroom, throwing up. And because of the fact that I had no food in my stomach, what I was literally throwing up was just like stomach acid. And whatever little bits of food I had from probably like 2 days before, that was coming up bit by bit. And the throwing up did not stop. I was throwing up like every 5 minutes. To the point where I wasn't even able to get like a bit of rest to like fully lay down and go back to sleep. Like I was constantly having to be on my side. I had to have a bucket on the side of my bed to literally be able to just roll over, quickly throw up, then lay back down on my back, roll over, throw up again. And then it started getting to the point where I was just throwing up blood at this point. I started seeing blood bit by bit, and then more and more with each time that I threw up. And you would think that I would have called the hospital, called the ambulance to say that, oh, like something's wrong with me. No, I did not. I did not call the hospital, call the ambulance until 2 days later. So me overdosing on the medicine happened on July 5th. I did not call the ambulance, hospital, anything until 2 days later, July 7th. And again, because I'm sharing what my mind space was like at that time. And the reason that I called the ambulance, not even because of the fact that I literally attempted to take my own life with overdosing on pills. I called the ambulance because I got tired of throwing up. I got tired. Like my throat was hurting. It was hard for me to talk. That's the reason why I called the ambulance. And it was probably like early afternoon on July 7th. I got my cell phone. I dialed 911. The lady answered the phone, and I said, 2 days ago, I overdosed on a whole bunch of pills, and I've been throwing up for the past 2 days. And I could literally hear like the pause in her voice with me saying that, because one, I said it very nonchalantly, and I just like kind of breezed over the fact that I said that I overdosed on pills to try to kill myself, and I have been throwing up for the past 2 days. And then she asked her, not even just her, but just like literally every other medical professional that had asked me the question, because you'll see later on in the story, like people kept asking, why did I not call the ambulance the day I did that? Is like, because I didn't care. And the only reason I called when I did was because I eventually just got tired of throwing up. So also, I would like to say that no one knew that I was doing this. Literally, the people who work in my building didn't know that that had happened until the ambulance literally came to pick me up and take me to the hospital, and they didn't see me for 2 weeks. So yeah, the ambulance came, picked me up, took me to the hospital. Because I was dealing with like a physical medical issue, they had to have me in like I forget what you call that area of the hospital. I don't remember. But they had me on an IV drip because I had pretty much became super dehydrated at that point. And with the way that I was throwing up blood, they had to replenish blood in my system as well. And they were trying to feed me little by little, because it was like my body, it was like to the point where it's like my body was like almost malnourished. So that lasted for about 8-ish hours, 6 to 8 hours. Then I got moved to the psych ward. And I was in the psych ward for 2 weeks. Well, the first day that I went in the psych ward, was it because they do like the whole intake with you. They have you sit down with like the people who are on the team at that time, be like, oh, like what like led you to like have this happen, whatever. And I gave the same answer that I gave the other people. I overdosed on pills because I tried to kill myself. And then the question they asked is like, why did you try to kill yourself? And I'm like, because I wanted to die. I tried to kill myself because I wanted to die, is point blank period. So they asked me that, and like a whole bunch of other stuff relating to that. And then I got the chance to like call people to let them know that I was in the hospital, whatever. And the first person that I called, I call her auntie, and she's also the worship director, worship leader in my church. I serve on the worship team with her. Letice Crawford. She was the first person that I called. And I believe she was the only person that I think I did call my boyfriend, my then boyfriend at the time. But she was the person that I called first, and I told her why I was there, what happened, and she was like, okay, thank you for telling me this. And she like went to work of just like checking in with me every day. Like I'm pretty sure I was like on the phone with her like every other day, because she worked with the caseworker that they assigned me with in the hospital to like check in on my progress, and to make like a plan for me for when I come out the hospital, as far as like recovery and like what is it, like therapeutic referrals and things of that nature. So also, in the hospital, I was put back on medication again, because up until that point, it had been like about 2 months since I had been off medication that I was previously prescribed. And funny enough, they put me back on the same medication that I told them didn't work for me, which is why I was off in the first place. They put me back on that same medication. So in times where I would have like check-ins with the psychiatrist, doctors on site, they would ask me how I'm feeling. I'd be like, oh, like I'm feeling better. Like I'm feeling like I feel like I'm getting better like day by day. Like, oh, I was like in a really hectic manic episode. and things like that. It's like they literally forgot that I said that my medication wasn't working, but showed they didn't listen to me. So what I did, I lied so that I could get out of there, which is what a lot of people do anyway. But that's a whole other episode within itself about the reality of being in a psych ward and how they actually work in there. That's a whole other episode. If you want that, let me know. But yeah, in 2 weeks' time, I was out, went back home. I started doing art therapy, which I still do now every Thursday, with Ajane, and she's great. I currently do not have a therapist because I'm still trying to look for one. Do not have a psychiatrist because I know that the next psychiatrist that I do get, whenever I get them, they will want to put me back on medication. And I am hesitant to want to get back on medication. Not in the sense that it's like, oh, like I'm definitely going to try to kill myself with pills again. Like, no, I'm not in that headspace. But I don't want to be a trigger to myself, because literally my last suicide attempt, the way I tried to kill myself was overdosing on medication. And other times in the numerous other times that I have tried to take my own life, the method that I used was overdosing on medication, on pills, either pills that was prescribed to me or just any other pill that I could find in my house or wherever I was. So again, I don't want to be a trigger to myself. I did find out, however, that there is an option to get injections. So you would pretty much come in, get an injection, and it will last a month. And then you just come in once a month to get your treatment. And I found that out recently, very, very recently. I don't know why I was just now finding out about the information. Also, with all the doctors that I've had before, psychiatrists, everything, that option was never brought up. And I consider that to be a problem. But to continue, with whatever medicine my next psychiatrist will want to put me on, and I say that, oh, I'd rather get the injection method instead of taking pills because of everything that I just explained, the medication they may want to put me on may not even be available in injection form. So that is why I am hesitant to want to even get a psychiatrist right now. So now I want to talk about what my recovery / healing looks like. And the way I have it written down on, because I have like the outline of what I want to talk about, and then pretty much whatever I say is just said in the moment. But how I have it written down is with quotation marks, and I will go into explaining why I have it like that. So I first want to start off by saying, because I have said this before here on my YouTube and on my TikTok and Instagram, pretty much anywhere where I make this type of content on social media. Me being Christian, I have the faith and belief that God can heal. He is able to heal. I had cancer 3 times. He is able to physically heal someone. And I know that if he is able to physically heal someone, he is able to liberate someone from emotional, mental distress that they are dealing with. I know that for a fact. But because he is able to heal you does not mean that he has to. And I know me saying that will probably ruffle some feathers. If it rubs you the wrong way, then that says more on you than it does me. That is all I will say. But yes, God can and is able to heal. He does not have to heal you, though. God is not obliged to heal you. God is not your genie. You do not get 3 wishes with him. You cannot just kind of use him whenever you want him to do something for you. That's not how the relationship between you and God works. That's not how it's supposed to work. That's not how the dynamic between you and God is supposed to be. So I say that to say that, and this is literally something that was talked about in my church of a previous sermon series that my church did, is that God can have you stay in a specific situation, but elevate your faith, your hope, just yourself as a being in that situation. And it could be the most crappiest of crappiest situations that a person could ever be in. He could have you stay there, but you yourself as a person can be elevated, from the inside, your mindset. So I say that to say that I have come to terms with the fact that a possible reality for me will be that I live with depression, anxiety, and borderline personality disorder for the rest of my life. Struggle with that, with the trauma that I have to work through, with the triggers, with the anxiety, panic attacks, with the low lows, with the high highs, euphoric feeling, very bad euphoric feeling that comes with manic episodes and mood swings, and still say yes to God. Still show up on Sundays, whether I'm scheduled to be on the worship team or not, to worship and praise Him and hear the word of God and be around my community of people in my church. Still show up for Bible study. Still show up for fellowship with people outside of a church service to hang out. Still take the time to have my own prayer time with God in my house, doing little Bible devotionals by myself, still saying yes to God, still dying to myself while going through hell. Because why? It gives glory to God. And it shows other people that, oh, wait, you too? Wait, you struggle with the same thing I do, and yet you still, you're still here? God has still kept you? Yes. So I say that to say, again, God can and is able to heal you, but He does not have to. And the reason for everything that God does is to grow you, heal you, mold you. Sometimes He may have to humble you, and to give glory to Him. Because guess what? At the end of the day, it's not about me. It's not about me. It's not. It's about the people that I know, with them hearing what I have to say, that one, they'll know they're not alone. Two, they will gain strength and hope from what I say, to be able to share their own experiences and share their testimony. And it becomes a ripple effect, that my testimony allows someone else to share their testimony, and their testimony allows someone else to share their testimony, and so on and so forth. And then it gives people the encouragement to open up about the real life struggles that people like me, Christians, or even people who don't practice Christianity, who deal with these very real mental health struggles, to say that there needs to be more advocacy, there needs to be more love and compassion and knowledge shed on people who deal with that type of stuff, and that things need to change. And then with that comes healing. With that comes freedom. With that comes a sense of joy for the person, to know that their lives are being changed in that way, to know that they are being seen and heard and understood in that way. That is what matters. That is what matters at the end of the day. Now, right now, I just have an art therapist. That's the only type of therapy that I'm getting right now. Of course, with art therapy, we do different art projects here and there. We're actually currently trying to work on a new art project right now. But in between that, we do have our talking sessions, where she really just asks me a lot about where my headspace is right now, and the process that I kind of go through of working out my emotions, and what parts of it are good, what parts of it are bad, and what parts can be improved upon, But I do love art therapy. Art is something that I love very much. I'm a very creative person. So art therapy has been very, very beneficial for me. As far as like recovery healing when it comes to the more mental emotional side of things, this is again another realization that I've had to learn for myself. That is going to be a lifelong process. A lifelong process. Because things like triggers do still exist. The people that are still alive on this earth that have caused me great pain and sorrow and hurt, they are still around. And I could be easily triggered by them, by something they say or something they do that reminds me of how they treated me in the past. And that can take me to a place where I don't want to be. Now, it cannot be a super, super low place, but I can find myself in a low place. You know, it happens. It is inevitable. I can't run away from triggers. I can't run away from it. I can't. I wish I could, but I can't. Because I am aware of certain things that are triggers to me. But even now, even still now, I am getting triggered by things that I didn't think would affect me until I have to sit down and do the mental work of like, how did this make me feel? Why did it make me feel this way? And what past event in my life also made me feel that way, to where there is some type of connection, to where I can draw a bottom line of like, oh, like this is the common denominator in all of this, you know? So it is going to be a lifelong work with however long God wants me on this earth. And that's not even just for me, that's for anyone that deals with any type of mental health issue. It doesn't even have to be borderline personality disorder. It could be schizophrenia. It could be multiple personality disorder or DID. It could be bipolar. Or you could just have depression and anxiety, or you could have a panic disorder. It could be any of those things, okay? Any of those things. So that is what my healing and recovery will look like for the rest of my life. And I want to say this because I know people will try to put words in my mouth, especially for the Pharisee kind of Christians who may come across this podcast and come across the type of content that I make. Because I've already had to make content to counteract people who have said insensitive things, commented insensitive things on things that I posted. I am not saying that God can't heal and restore me. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that I could possibly be in a position where I will just be healing or being restored, not fully restored. That is what I'm saying. That process could last for my whole life. It could, and that is a possibility, and that is my reality. And because you have never experienced the truth that I have lived for 24 years of my life, does not mean that it is not real at all. Just because my reality is a reality you've never had to live does not mean that it does not mean that it isn't real, does not mean that it isn't hurtful, and does not mean that it doesn't cause true pain or wouldn't cause true pain to someone. You haven't walked in my shoes, so you wouldn't know, and trust me, you would not have wanted to walk in my shoes. You wouldn't. And I say 24 years because my first traumatic experience was at the age of 4. Since the age of 4, I have struggled with intrusive thoughts and thoughts of death and wanting to die. My first suicidal ideation was around the age of 6. First self-harm that I did to myself was around the age of 9-10. First suicide attempt was at the age of 12. And then I've had multiple attempts since then, but last year was my last suicide attempt. So again, that is what my recovery and my healing looks like. And that is what it will probably look like for, again, however long I am on this earth. But I am holding on to the bit of faith that I do have currently. And I can honestly say that it's not a lot. Like, I could have more faith. I know that is something that I obviously have to work on between me and God. But the little bit of faith that I do have, of things that I have seen, of the way that God is still somehow holding me all together, the way that I am still somehow able to show up in spaces that I probably don't want to be there. That healing and restoration is currently happening, and it will continue to happen for however long it takes. That brings us to the end of today's episode of Consider Talks podcast. I am thankful to everyone who stayed till the end to listen. I pray and hope that you listened with an open heart and mind, beside listening with open ears. And I hope that this episode reaches those who need to hear it, and those that truly care about spreading the advocacy and awareness of mental health illness in and outside the Christian space. And overall, I hope you did enjoy the episode and possibly learn some things today. Now, the link for where you can listen to my podcast and this episode, all the links for that will be down below. And again, I know it has been months since I recorded my last episode. In the future, I will really try to make a video podcast, because I do have a YouTube channel for this podcast. It is Kasuki Talks Podcast. Again, the link for that will be in the description of wherever you are listening to this podcast on, whether it's Spotify, Anchor, whether it is Apple. The link will be there. But in the future, I do want to work on doing video podcasts where you can actually see my face, because I find that video podcasts are a lot more popular among people, even myself. Some of the podcasts that I listen to, I actually like watching the video, because there's something about seeing the people and the expressions that they make when they say certain things. It just kind of helps of being more engaged into whatever they're saying, Hopefully that makes sense. But yes, that's the end of this episode. I will leave a little question box for this on Spotify, because those pop up for Spotify, those little Q&A boxes. So I will leave that. But even on any other platform that you're listening to this on, if you want to leave a review or comment of what you thought about the episode, that would be lovely. And if you haven't left a review on the podcast yet, it would be very nice if you did so that more people can have my podcast show up on the recommended of whatever platform they listen to, and they can be part of our little community that we have here. So again, thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next episode. God bless you, and I love you.